Hello, everyone. This is a quick screencast to give you some introductory notes into our unit over ancient Greece. Um, this is our transition unit that we're moving from the ancient river valley civilizations to civilizations that will have a great impact on the Western world, Western civilization. Over the next several chapters, we'll deal with Greece and then finally with ancient Rome and a lot of the cultural ideas dealing with philosophy, government, religion of the Western world is all directly associated with these last two civilizations. Our introduction today, as usual, we will begin with some background geography. There's a couple of points of emphasis that I want to show you here that you can see on the screen, and then also to remind you that there is a question on your study guide over chapter 5 that asks the basic question of the impact that geography had on ancient Greece. So some of the answers to that question would show up in this section of the lecture. First of all, as you can see here, unlike the other civilizations that we've looked at, one of the key differences is that there's not like a major river valley that was significant for the development of the Greek civilization. The Greek peninsula here, this area in this region, which is far southern part of Europe and includes like the region down here, which is known as the Peloponnesus. And then if you move farther up into this area and to the north, this is called the Balkan Peninsula. There's a lot of short mountain ranges that cross the area. And one of the impact statements with that historians believe is that these small crossing mountain ranges divided the peninsula quite extensively. And one of the impact things that goes along with that is that the individual city-states of the peninsula were developed on their own, and that allowed for a lot of kind of individual thought, individual ideas about government and other principles that developed. So that would be one of those impact ideas that connected to geography. The region has a very mild climate. The Mediterranean region is very temperate and mild. The Greek civilization experienced or had the benefit of long, long coastlines, and as a result of those long coastlines, the Greeks were extensive sailors, traders, fishermen. A major component of a lot of the coastal city-states, of course, was connected to ocean trade. The Greek people themselves have their ancestry back into earlier civilizations. The Greeks, actually, the term Greeks is really the term that the Romans gave to the Greek people. They referred to themselves as the Hellenes or the Hellenic people. But the ancestry behind the Greeks or the Hellenes goes back to two other groups, the Minoans, which is the oldest of the two, and then the Mycenaeans. And both of those are civilizations that you're going to see some things about in a documentary that we're going to watch, kind of about the mythology behind the story of the lost city of Atlantis. So I wanted to introduce a few of these ideas as it connects to that documentary as well. The dates of these civilizations go way back to 2800 BC to approximately 1500 BC. So they are significant in terms of Greek development. They are the ancestors of the Greeks, but distinctly different in many ways. Although the Greeks, I think, would have characterized these people as Greeks or Hellenic. They just saw them as their distant ancestors. First of all is the Minoan civilization, and the area where the Minoan civilization developed is here in the Mediterranean, particularly on the island of Crete, but they had people that lived in multiple small islands throughout this region of the Mediterranean. They have a main city on the island of Crete, as one of your map locations is the city of Knossos, and that city is a big part of the archaeological um, importance of the region. That's a city that has been uncovered and excavated, and that will show up on our documentary as well. Basically contemporaries with the period of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. You can see some things about their government. They were ruled by priest kings. Religion was very significant. And one of the things that we see also is that their cities that they built were not surrounded by walls, which for historians is a strong indication that either they didn't fear military attack or that they were felt like they were protected enough because of their um, distance from other civilizations that they did not need to wall in their cities. But generally speaking, they are seen as kind of a peace-loving people, at least as what is indicated by a lot of their artwork. Shipbuilders and traders, and eventually they are supplanted by the next civilization, which is known as the Mycenaeans, around the period of 1400 BC. And the Mycenaeans were a much different people than the Minoans. We'll look at them here in just a little bit. A couple of additional things about the Minoans. You can see some of their artwork, and one of the things you notice, like a lot of natural scenes. You see a lot of pictures and murals depicting um, the beauty of nature. Very, very few, and maybe none that I can think of, depictions of military types of images, weapons, soldiers fighting, which is again a strong indication that they were probably a peaceful trading people. This bottom picture is one that's significant. It's been pointed out a lot about the Minoans. This is a picture of young people doing some kind of it's believed to be a competition or a religious ceremony, which may have been competition too, connected to almost like bowl leaping, gymnastic forms of some type. And this is also something pointed out in the documentary that you're going to be watching. Here's the Palace of Knossos. You can notice the fresco here on the front of the palace. Now, part of this was restructured later on. It did not look exactly like this when it was excavated, but the materials are the materials that were there. And then notice again here, going back, here this bowl emphasis in their imagery from the Minoans. And then if you notice here, also in front of the palace, there's another structure that is kind of shaped like bull horns that's believed associated with the significance of the bull to the Minoans, as the bull and cattle were significant to a lot of early civilizations. Here's another fresco kind of showing the way they depicted figures and again, kind of the peaceful, naturalistic nature of the Minoans. A couple of things about religion. As I'm saying, it's not really particular test stuff, but it also does include a few things about their religious beliefs. Again, you see like fertility figures that are associated with the Minoans, like we've looked at in other civilizations. So probably some type of religion associated to a mother goddess, a fertility goddess, Mother Earth goddess, something along those lines. The other thing from the Minoans, and I pointed this out about the bull figures, the story of the Minoans is connected to the Greeks later on. If you're familiar with Greek mythology and the story of King Minos and the story of the Minotaur and Theseus, the Minotaur is this half human, half bull mixture that was fought and killed by the hero Theseus as a way to kind of protect the people that were being sacrificed to the Minotaur. It's kind of a long, drawn-out story, but basically it was a story of the king's wife who had had a sexual relationship with a bull, and she had then given birth to a half bull, half human child, and they locked it away in a labyrinth underneath the palace, and then fed other young people to it. and eventually Theseus, the hero, is able to kill that Minotaur. So that's an ancient Greek story, but it's really connected back to the Minoans themselves. Okay, our second group, and the last one here for this little mini lecture, is the Mycenaeans. The Mycenaeans are going to supplant the Minoans, and they're much different than the Minoans. Very militaristic. We see the difference in the way that they live because instead of unwalled cities, the Mycenaeans built these fortress palaces up on hilltops to kind of overview the land, and they're very, very militaristic, kind of the thugs of the ancient Greek people. Most powerful and dominant by 1400 BC in this whole area of the Aegean, and the Mycenaeans are the group associated with Greek mythology and ancient history that would have been the Greeks fighting during the period of the Trojan War, which is why I have this picture of the Trojan horse that was used to smuggle Greek warriors into the city of Troy when the Mycenaeans engaged them in battle. Now, that's a pretty famous story, and I'm not going to deal with it too much here in terms of the story itself, but on the documentary you'll be watching, there will be some sections about the Trojan War. When the Trojan Wars ended between Troy and the Mycenaeans, there's a whole period of civil war that's broke out on the peninsula, the Greek peninsula, and is referred to as kind of this period of a dark age. An additional group is going to enter the picture who becomes significant for us later. There's a group called the Dorians that come in and they conquer the Mycenaeans. And the Mycenaeans were pretty tough, so the Dorians were definitely a strong militaristic group. They come in and conquer the Mycenaeans, and the whole region became very war-torn. As one historian referred to it, an era of wandering and killing developed throughout the region. And basically what comes out of this is that this is when we see a very significant development of independent Greek city-states starting to emerge. And that will be our next stage that we're going to be looking at, this development of independent city-states that will start to develop the ideas that we think of as democracy, and individual power of individual citizens, but also the democratic decisions made by groups to govern a city-state, and then eventually to govern countries, such as our own. So the last thing I want to show you before you move eventually onto the documentary is this is what the documentary is about. It's called The Legacy of Atlantis, and it focuses on several areas. I mentioned the city of Troy and the Trojan War. This is located in what is today modern-day Turkey. And then there's a couple of other locations in the movie that are emphasized. This is the city of Mycenae, where the Mycenaeans lived, and the king Agamemnon, who is famous from the story of the Trojan War. And then the final place that it concentrates on is this island that is called Thera, which I believe is called Santorini today. It's not called the island of Thera anymore, but that was the Greek name. And as all of these documentaries, they deal with archaeology and history. And one of the archaeological things here that they talk about also is like the discovery of the city of Knossos and the Minoan civilization here on the island of Crete. So those are kind of your key locations, and plus these are also all map locations, I think, that I have on this unit map. And then last thing here, the city of Troy itself, they'll talk about this in the documentary. It was discovered by a German archaeologist, kind of an amateur archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann. And Troy is one of those cities that was inhabited for a long, long period of time. In his excavations, he realized that there was at least 9 major settlements that existed in this area, and they excavated down to the lowest levels of these 9 settlements that had existed over hundreds and hundreds, and actually I should probably say at least 1,000 years, I think. And so they concentrate on this as kind of an aspect of interesting archaeology within the documentary as well. All right, so when I get back next week, we will be discussing the ideas associated with the growth of the Greek city states and democracy.